Your parents messed you up. You hear this line all the time, right? When you talk about childhood traumas with your therapists and your friends. But what does that line actually mean to you, the kid who felt invisible his whole life? In this video, we're not just discussing why it happened, but why it was important. So, yes, your parents did fall short. They really didn't know how to love or appreciate you in the right way, in the way you needed. But imagine, even after all the angry journal entries and the nights you cried, you are still sitting with your pain. You're still left with it. Your core beliefs have already formed. So clearly, blame alone is not going to help you or anyone. The problem is when a child does not feel seen, he does not stop loving the parent, he stops loving himself. He turns his back on himself. That's the only conclusion a young mind can draw. And it goes on for years and decades, even until much later in his 20s and 30s when the child realizes what he was doing. And today might be the day of realization for you, right when you're watching this video. So, a friend once told me she went to therapy for her self doubt issues, and at one point, her therapist asked, when you doubt yourself, whose eyes are you seeing yourself through? And whose tone matches the voice of your self criticism? Imagine. She literally froze because she suddenly heard it. It was not her voice, it was her father's voice, constantly comparing her to other kids, to her cousin, to her siblings, and stuff. She had been criticizing herself in her father's voices for decades and she was not aware of it. That's the kind of damage I'm talking about. Now, what do you do with that damage, really? You actually use it as a proof that hurt people bleed on other people when they don't even mean to. Parents project their inferiority onto their children. They often themselves carry a belief that they are less than others, like many people. And sadly, that impacts how they see their own child too. They believe their child too is less capable than others because that child belongs to them. Not because it's true, but because of how they see the world and themselves. It's the baggage they are carrying, the patterns they inherited from their own parents. So, really, how far back does the blame go? And all this might sound totally hopeless, but good news, you still have the chance to grow. And the first really fundamental step begins with not taking it personally. At some point, you become mature enough to realize that they are not yelling or criticizing you. They are just yelling. You just happened to be standing in front of them. Simply, that's probably their habit, not a response to what you did. Say a father who drinks and has anger issues, and one night the kid forgets to do homework, and suddenly a lifetime of rage explodes and comes out on the kid. Not because of the homework, but because the father never learned how to process his pain and anger, which can be very confusing for the kid experiencing it. And it might be really too late for the father to understand that because he didn't have the right emotional tools he needed to grow when there was still hope. And waiting for the apology that may never come begins to cost you really. You have to understand that it's time to stop waiting for it because your growth is being held hostage by that apology you're waiting for. Your growth needs you to choose closure over that kind of delay. And the closure is when Your parents only struggle to appreciate themselves. How can they hold up that mirror of appreciation for you? Just think about it. Truly see the situation for what it is, not by trying to fix your parents or blaming them or even blaming yourself, but by realizing that you are on autopilot now. You have internalized your parents' unprocessed patterns, the ones that are not even yours to begin with, and that you have handed over the controls to someone else when you are supposed to have them now at this point in life. And this is quite transformative. Hear this. In order for you to have real trust in your abilities, you had to go through this unhealthy dynamic. You had to feel unseen to learn how to see yourself. You were made to rely on that self trust that was still building. It wasn't just some random painful stuff, it was necessary to develop solid self trust from within without having anyone else validating you or telling you that you're good, you are doing well. That was your calling. The very hardship forged the strength in you to actually build trust in your voice, judgment, and your capabilities that you never did before. You were being forced to do that. And that's where reparenting comes in. You begin showing up for yourself in ways that you once needed others to, you once wanted. You start noticing small moments where you can respond differently, more gently, and more consciously than your parents ever could. Because there's no perfect parenting, really. But you can do something that will make you softer and feel more at peace. Stepping into that role yourself, offering that safety, encouragement, and compassion, and rebuilding that trust with yourself again. But mind you, it's difficult to really get into reparenting yourself. It might feel awkward at first, even fake. You will keep spiraling, thinking if this had really happened, I would be a completely different person with a different personality, a different life, which is completely valid. Mourning something important that was missing and it was necessary for it to be there. But your job now is not to erase what happened because you cannot change the experience, it already happened. But what you can do now is finally respond differently to it, choosing pure gentleness moment by moment instead of that old conditioned reaction of judgment which you might have picked up along the way. The change has to start with you. And the best part is, you just don't grow from your past when you choose to reparent yourself, you also change the future. You become the kind of caregiver or the parent you needed to yourself, and one day, if you decide, to your kids. You offer them what you never had, that safety, that encouragement, and that compassion that everyone needs initially. So, if you're listening to this right now, and if you have ever felt invisible, unloved, and unappreciated, hear me. It was not your fault. The foundation was shaky from the start. But as you step in this moment, you have everything you need to change that narrative. Your past shaped you, but it does not have to stay the same way. Reparent yourself and stop dwelling on external blame or internal blame. Start showing up in healthier and vital ways. Become your own most reliable source. So, if this spoke to something buried deep into you, something you have never said out loud, tell me in the comments. I read each one of them.